A glimmer illuminates the abyss, pulsing, growing, shining. It alights the watery dark. But it reveals not treasures of times past, nor wonders untold. For what lurks beneath is the conqueror of the sea. To know the world, one must explore it. All of it. Every corner, no matter how remote or small, deserves one's attention if the goal is to measure and understand our planet. This is a lesson the Hunters Guild learned when it investigated the folklore of distant lands and ventured into a lost continent, to be rewarded with discoveries that shook and delighted the minds of all who partook. It was a lesson that went on to inform their future actions thoroughly, as the guild began scouring their maps for uncharted territory. One part of the world that had at this point been known about but scarcely investigated was the Island District, a collection of islands that juts out of the central sea the mainland coils around. Rough waters and a prior focus on more economically established regions had thus far prevented any meaningful guild venture into the area. But that was about to change. Newly invigorated by their experiences in Fonron, guild researchers rushed towards the island district in a scientific frenzy that is generally considered the starting point of what is now called the third generation of guild research. The island district had, of course, always been somewhat populated even before guild activity in the region kicked off. Small villages have existed here and there since time immemorial, and the area is considered the potential birthplace of the Sea Folk, one of the 5 major races of our world, after all. With the help of these sparse populations, the guild was able to chart and discover many new, unique ecosystems that had developed in complete isolation. One of the most bountiful of these discoveries was the deserted island. It is one of the largest islands in the district and, as the name suggests, is mostly uninhabited. A single settlement named Moga sits on its coast, and it is from there that the guild was able to extract valuable insight into this new region. While the guild calls it the Deserted Island, it is also colloquially often called Moga Island. Research progressed well, with hunters even discovering a regional variation of the royal rafts here. But after their experiences with Fonron and Elder Dragons in general, the guild also made sure to pay attention to the local rumors and legends swirling within settlements like Moga. They might hold clues towards the next great discovery. Luckily, the islander communities were full of stories and folklore worth investigating. There were memories of rumblings that shook Moga every so often, and tales of a wyvern that swallows the world whole. But 2 stories that caught the guild's attention both related to the sea. Fishermen spoke of a phenomenon they called the Shining Vortex, wherein a powerful whirlpool formed in the sea that glowed with an eerie blue energy. This bizarre occurrence could easily sink ships, and sailors were advised to avoid it at all costs. The second myth that grabbed the guild's attention was that of the Lord of the Sea, said to be a massive sea dragon that attacks fisher boats if disturbed. Another warning to young upstart sailors. Seeing the possibility of these 2 stories being linked, the guild launched an investigation into the waters near Moga, despite the extremely limited ability to survey the oceans. For a while, this endeavor went nowhere, and while other small monsters were discovered on these islands regularly, the Lord of the Sea remained absent. Then, one day, a hunter who was tasked with gathering food on the deserted island watched an enormous sea creature lunge out of the depths and drag a bird wyvern into a watery grave. After this incident, the guild was able to spot this creature a few more times, and each time their confusion grew. It looked like an aquatic monster, but it did not resemble any known piscine wyverns at all. After some back and forth with the Scrivener's Lodge, it was decided to revise the guild's evolutionary tree yet again, and create an entirely new classification of monster. The Leviathans, the first member of which was to be this newly discovered ruler of the island district. In honor of one of the stories surrounding it, the guild named the monster Shining Vortex in Mogan, Lagiacrus. To this day, the Lagiacrus is considered the archetypical Leviathan, and is often used to define the entire classification. Leviathans, like piscine wyverns, are wyverns that predominantly move by swimming through or burrowing into some kind of medium, be it water, mud, or even lava. But unlike piscine wyvern, Leviathans walk on 4 legs when on solid ground, and come in a wider variety of shapes. The Lagiacrus represents one of those general body plans, a long, slender body with a highly flexible spine. Looking at it as an individual monster, the Lagiacrus earns its title as Lord of the Sea through some excellent aquatic adaptations. It is covered in blue scales that make it disappear easily into the sea, a coat that is only interrupted by orange-brown protrusions lining its back and head. Its long tail functions as a fin that can create strong propulsive force through horizontal motion, and the massive hood on the Leviathan's neck is highly muscular, able to manipulate and direct water currents to its advantage with slight alterations. The result of these adaptations is that the Lagiacrus is an unrivaled swimmer despite its enormous size. Underwater, it can propel itself at high speeds while still remaining highly maneuverable. But the Lagiacrus is not fully aquatic. It has lungs and needs air regularly. Researchers estimate that it can only stay underwater for about 12 hours at a time before having to surface again. While underwater, a palatal valve in its throat closes up in order to prevent its lungs filling with water, only opening up again when the creature reaches the surface. The Lagiacrus is fully carnivorous and hunts both underwater and at the water's edge to fulfill its dietary needs. On land, it predominantly hunts small monsters such as Aptonoth, with its main strategy being to grab them with its maw and drag them into the water. This is enabled by Lagiacrus's spectacularly powerful bite. Its teeth are, oddly enough, shaped much like those of terrestrial carnivores, but elongated beyond what is usually seen on land. The guild believes that this structure is a sort of all-rounder build. It has the robustness of terrestrial teeth that allows biting through scales and fur, but their elongation also ensures a solid grip through the fat and blubber layers that are more common in aquatic prey. In addition to its true teeth, the Lagiacrus also has 16 pseudo-fangs outside of its mouth, which further enhance its grip and allow it to drag even large land prey into the abyss. It can also fight off competing predators with its long claws. These might, however, not exist for much longer. Some guild scholars believe that their odd shape is an indication that they are actually in the process of evolving into fins. But to witness the Lagiacrus's true prowess, one must observe how it hunts in the water. Its prey there mostly consists of epioth, a small leviathan species that was discovered shortly after the Lagiacrus, as well as various types of schooling fish and even sharks. When it finds suitable prey, the Lagiacrus begins its assault. By swimming around them rapidly and manipulating the water with its hood, it creates a whirlpool that traps prey in a swirling vortex. Once its target is immobilized by the currents, the Lagiacrus displays its most outrageous ability. The orange-brown protrusions on its back are special organs called shell shockers, and sit on top of a layer of specialized white muscle. When stimulated, these muscles contract and relax hundreds of times per second. This rapid oscillation interacts with an electrolytic chemical on the muscle's surface and produces an electric charge. This charge then travels up to the shell shockers, which are highly porous. These pores hold special storage cells, which can hold onto the electric charge for some time. As the reaction goes on, more and more electricity is held in the shell shocker's pores, as the protrusions begin to glow with energy. Once this process reaches criticality, the Lagiacrus releases the stored electric energy into a powerful pulse, electrifying the water around it and zapping any prey that was previously immobilized by the whirlpool. This shock is strong enough to instantly kill smaller prey, and will reliably stun larger prey long enough to be devoured without trouble. This hunting strategy is believed to be where the Shining Vortex myth the monster is named after originated from. What fishermen saw as a bizarre ocean phenomenon was actually a Lagiacrus hunting with the help of its electric shocks, producing a whirlpool illuminated by thunderous blue light. For some time, researchers were puzzled as to why it didn't use its shell shockers when hunting on land as well. The electric shocks released by them would certainly be a powerful asset against competing land predators, such as the wraths, who are known to be weak to thunder element attacks. They eventually reached a very simple answer. The Lagiacrus doesn't use them on land because it can't. The electrical resistance of air is much higher than that of water, and while the shell shockers produce a powerful charge, it is not powerful enough to reliably propagate itself through the medium of air. One could imagine that a Lagiacrus could force itself to emit a stronger charge that could work through air, but that doesn't appear to be possible. Since the shell shockers require rapid voluntary muscle contractions, using them is extremely exhausting already, and the Lagiacrus is often forced to rest after using them. Additionally, holding the electric charge heats up the shockers, whose structural integrity seems to rely on being cooled by the surrounding water. What the Lagiacrus can do on land and in water, however, is produce a charge that travels not into the shockers, but into a specialized mucus pouch. The charge electrifies the mucus, which the Lagiacrus can then spit at terrestrial foes as a limited trump card. This was originally believed to be the only way for a Lagiacrus to use its thunder abilities on land. There are still countless mysteries regarding the Lagiacrus's shell shockers. For example, the horns on its head are actually also just two shell shockers, right down to having pores that can hold electric storage cells. But for some reason, these two shockers are inactive. While they have been seen glowing on occasion, no Lagiacrus has ever been observed discharging electricity from them. Some researchers believe that their discharge ability may have degenerated to protect the Leviathan from accidentally frying its own brain, but a true consensus has not been reached yet. What is, however, undeniable is the Lagiacrus's ecological dominance. The Lord of the Sea is no false king, for no creature can withstand it underwater. It ruthlessly attacks anything it perceives as a disturbance to its territory, which is why it will sometimes assault and sink fishing boats. While it does find a rival above the sea in Rathalos, the Lagiacrus has no natural predators and is the unrivaled apex of the island district. Its most powerful ability is called Great Discharge, wherein the beast charges its shockers up to maximum capacity and releases all of its energy at once. Anything caught in this blast underwater will be annihilated. The only times a Lagiacrus is vulnerable is after it has overused its shell shockers. Interestingly, recovering the strength of this organ requires it to rest on land specifically, which is when it is most exposed. Despite the guild's best efforts, much still remains unknown about the Lagiacrus. Monsters are hard to research at the best of times, and one that can vanish into the deepest oceanic abyss at will is a real challenge to track down and study. They appear to nest on land, as a few Lagiacrus have been spotted hanging around a nest-like area on the deserted island. Many leviathans that have been discovered since are known to nest on land as well, so it is possible that the Lagiacrus has a similar brooding strategy. Besides that, no breeding or social behavior has ever been observed. Some scholars have proposed that the shell shockers might have originally developed as a means of bioluminescence, which would allow Lagiacrus to communicate with each other in the dark waters using light signals. This is, however, also still under investigation. Another oddity about the Lagiacrus is its regional distribution. While it was originally believed to be unique to the island district, it has since been seen in the Terosu region as well, in both salt and fresh water. Despite this wide range and the variable water conditions these populations live in, no obvious regional variations have ever been recorded or classified. To further add to the mystery, recent sightings of Lagiacrus have included baffling reports of it being able to use its shell shockers freely even on land. While it was initially dismissed as young hunters trying to tell fanciful stories, the frequency of these reports cannot be ignored. A thorough investigation is currently pending. But even before these more recent reports, stories of a Lagiacrus wielding its full power on land did in fact exist. Most notably, the village chief of Moga, who himself had been a renowned and powerful hunter in his youth, claimed that his career was ended by such a beast. A Lagiacrus, pale-shelled and heavy-set, whose thunder danced freely across the solid ground. It was a bold claim, but when it comes from someone of such status, the guild had no choice but to investigate. This would reveal itself to be a wise decision, as not long after, researchers spotted the creature described by the chief, a white subspecies of Lagiacrus, dubbed Ivory Lagiacrus. This exceedingly rare monster is largely identical to the more commonly known blue Lagiacrus, with the main difference being a larger body covered in white scales. A most drastic change is seen in its behavior, however. While the Ivory Lagiacrus is still a fantastic swimmer, it spends most of its time on land, and only enters the water for long-distance travels. It is highly mobile on land and hunts predominantly terrestrial prey. It has even been observed being followed by packs of bird wyvern, hoping to steal a few bites off of its kills. But most shockingly, the Ivory Lagiacrus is able to use its electric attacks to their full extent, even on land. Understanding how this is possible took considerable effort on the guild's part, but a preliminary idea regarding the Ivory Lagiacrus's ecology began to develop soon enough. Based on the fact that its skeletal structure is identical to the blue species despite having to navigate the lands more, many researchers believe that this subspecies emerged fairly recently and is still in the process of speciation. In order to be able to move efficiently on land, it sports adaptations that, so far, exclude the skeleton. Its muscles are stronger to carry its weight more efficiently across the land, and its skin now has a layer of subcutaneous tissue that stores moisture to avoid dehydration during prolonged periods outside of the water. As the species further specializes in a terrestrial lifestyle, more adaptations are sure to emerge. As for the discoloration and the ability to discharge electricity even through the air, the guild believes that these two features are actually linked. The limiting factor to the blue species' electric discharge was the high electrical resistance of air, so it stands to reason that the Ivory Lagiacrus is able to produce a much more powerful charge that can penetrate through the air reliably. Since the shell shocker's performance is tied to muscular activity, it's been proposed that the increased muscle mass and strength of the Ivory Lagiacrus also means that it can contract its electrolytic muscles with more force and endurance, leading to the strong charge necessary for this feat. The shell shockers themselves also seem to be more developed, requiring less cooling to function properly. One team of researchers has even proposed an additional step to this process. By emitting negatively charged atoms from its shockers prior to a discharge, the Ivory Lagiacrus can force its surroundings to take on the electromagnetic properties of a storm cloud, allowing its discharges to be unleashed without restriction. This specific hypothesis, however, is still under investigation. The white shell plays into this as well. Sample analysis has found that the white color is actually just a layer of minerals that sits on top of the scales, which themselves are still blue like those of the common species. This mineral layer holds traces of various compounds, such as quartz, and appears to work as an insulator. So, the general hypothesis goes that the Ivory Lagiacrus developed a quartz-enriched white shell to protect itself from the power of its enhanced thunder attacks. How exactly it was able to develop this shell is unclear, but the common assumption is that it, at some point, began supplementing its diet with quartz and similar minerals. The Lord of the Sea and the Conqueror of the Land, the genus Lagiacrus is a family of royalty, and these two species together form a duo of apex predators that rule the island district ferociously. But in the whispers of history lives another member of this royal family, a dark monarch of the abyss. As the guild had studied and unraveled the ecology and life of the Lagiacrus genus, many higher-ranking researchers and hunters voiced their unease about how familiar some of these insights seemed. For within the old records of the guild, in dusty libraries of ancient tomes, there was passing mention of a creature not unlike the Lagiacrus. But it was not a monster that ruled the water's surface, nor did it conquer the land. This creature was said to watch over the darkest depths of our world's oceans. The passage mentioning its existence ended with a short poem that, roughly translated, goes as follows. From the abyss's darkest cave comes the master of the wave, consumer of the world entire, devil of the sea most dire. Fear it as you fear the grave. It soon became clear that the guild would have to investigate this legend one way or another, and so a large-scale survey of the seas near Moga began. The Mogans provided crucial assistance here. In their folklore, it was said that every few decades or so, an abyssal dragon would surface near the ruins under the island. These ruins were thought to be the ancestral city of the previous civilization that lived on this island, and the Abyss Dragon was considered a watchful guardian that came to inspect Old Moga even in its watery decay. This lead was better than nothing, and so the guild included regular patrols of the underwater ruins into their survey effort. And, soon enough, these efforts would pay off, as a guild hunter did indeed spot the creature that would later be named the Abyssal Lagiacrus. While it is classified as a rare species, that is to say, a subspecies of extraordinary power and rarity, recent findings have concluded that the Abyssal Lagiacrus is actually not genetically distinct from the other Lagiacrus species. Instead, it is an extremely old individual, and both Blue and Ivory Lagiacrus can become Abyssal Lagiacrus if they manage to live long enough. Thus, many scholars are currently petitioning to have it reclassified as a variant. Of all the possible things to call it, there is one word that describes the Abyssal Lagiacrus flawlessly: powerful. Only the strongest individuals live long enough to transform into this shape, and so every Abyssal Lagiacrus is an unstoppable force, tempered by a lifetime of battle and experience. While the Blue species traverse sea and earth alike, and the Ivory species rules the lands, the Abyssal Lagiacrus is fully aquatic. This is due to its enormous size. As it ages, the Lagiacrus's body seems to grow continuously, and as the gravity of the overworld makes its weight increasingly unbearable, aging Lagiacrus will eventually abandon the land entirely and descend into the sea, where their weight and size don't slow them down as much. It is in fact believed that this moment is what begins their transformation into an Abyssal Lagiacrus. These elder Lagiacrus then undergo a startling change. Their scales turn fully black, and their swimming skills skyrocket beyond what they were capable of in their youth. Abyssal Lagiacrus are able to create vortexes even in the deepest seas through their circular motions, for example. But under the black shell glimmers a hint at a more profound change. Numerous scales glow with an intense, pulsing blue, a property shared with its now massive shell shockers. The thunder discharge produced by an Abyssal Lagiacrus is noticeably more powerful than that of its younger relatives, and also appears darker in color for some reason. But what is truly outrageous is that the Abyssal Lagiacrus can seemingly maintain an electric charge indefinitely, with energy pulsing through it at all times without ever exhausting it. If it discharges its thunder, it regains its charge almost immediately. For some time, this ability seemed to entirely violate the established laws of our world, and researchers were eager to understand how this was possible. Then, one hunter noted that in a particularly brutal battle, he had plunged his blade into the beast's abdomen and ripped out a small glowing flesh bulb. The Abyssal Lagiacrus had then immediately lost all of its charge and retreated back into the deep while wailing in pain and rage. The guild concluded that this small, bizarre organ must be the key to the Abyssal Lagiacrus's perpetual charge. How this structure, which is now called a thunder dynamo, functions exactly is still to be determined, but many theories have naturally arisen. One popular hypothesis proposes that the thunder dynamo can somehow extract energy from the molecular agitation in the water caused by the Abyssal Lagiacrus's electromagnetic aura. This would, in theory, allow for a perpetual recycling of energy. An absurd idea, but when dealing with monsters, one must sometimes be brave with one's assertions. A tamer hypothesis suggests that whatever the exact structure of the dynamo may be, it probably developed as a way to enable the Abyssal Lagiacrus's bioluminescence, as it probably uses the light it passively produces to lure and confuse deep-sea prey. One way or another, countless mysteries still surround this creature, and the deep waters are exceptionally skilled at keeping them just out of our reach. Next time on Monster Hunter Ecology. The tapping of feet, the gnashing of teeth, the waltz of a dogged flock ready to pounce. Led by a master, bound by blood, wyvern that hunt, wyvern that swarm. Hey, thank you everyone so much for watching. Monster Hunter Ecology Season 3 is officially a go, and I am very excited to show you what I've been working on. But as always, a very special thank you to all of my patrons. I want to especially thank Glitchy, Jacob Coleman, Adum, Draco Vane, Hellbug Hunter, Shebo, M1 Have 1 2, Regal Eagle, Ronger97, Quali, Elzendo Carlo, Matt Hat 124, My Name Gone, The Dollarfish, King Dre, Ryan Hook, Veraxis, Thick, Kuroneko, Zion H.V. Augenson, A.J. Rivera, Alistair, Jacob the Numbnut, Soruka, Sir Newt Newt, Evie, Rambling Robin, Hashi, Black Ace 202, Dissy, Hubbo Himbro Mirror, Magenta Magenta, Arcturian 711, Russell, Vulgar Beast, Person 212, Claire Miboon, Oakwood Tree, Mr. Pyramid, Makoto 02, Geo, Jamie Tate, Nils Schlatter, Iron Camel, and I'm going to bed. Take care everyone, I hope you have a good one. Bye bye.